illegal aliens into this country, people who shouldn't be here, people who are competing against you and your children to buy the homes that ought by rights go to American citizens. So our message to Kamala Harris is stop giving American homes to foreigners who shouldn't be in this country. Start giving them to American citizens who deserve to be here and ought to be able to afford a stake. Now, unfortunately, my friends, we know that it is not just higher housing prices and higher grocery prices and, yes, overcrowded schools. That's not the only consequences of illegal immigration thanks to Kamala Harris's open border, because there's a lot of crime. There's a lot of crime committed by people who shouldn't be in this country to begin with. And I just want to, I want to read through this. Now, earlier this year, an illegal immigrant from Guatemala killed a 21-month-old child in Chester County. That's just earlier this year. In 2022, fentanyl, thanks to Kamala Harris's open borders, became the most common source of overdose deaths in this country. Thank you to Kamala Harris, who allowed the Mexican drug cartels to turn our country into a drug trafficking zone. There are a lot of people who are dying of drug overdoses, a lot of lives who've been ruined because of that. And ladies and gentlemen, you know one of the things I really love about our country, and I believe that every single person in this room would agree with me, is the American dream is not just a dream for people who did everything right all the time. It's an American dream for people who want second chances. And I believe that in this country, we can have more second chances if we just get smarter policies. And this is something that is very personal to me, because those two beautiful boys that are running around outside, they have gotten a second chance with their grandmother, my mother, because this is a great and generous country. Now, a lot of you know that I was raised by my grandmother. And the reason I was raised by my grandmother, I called her Mamaw, I love Mamaw, is because my own mom struggled with opioid addiction for a big chunk of my early life. And I remember being that teenager at my mom's bedside, begging and praying to God that she would wake up from whatever she had taken. And what I worry about is that there are a lot of kids and a lot of grandparents who are having those exact same prayers go unanswered because of the poison that Kamala Harris has let come into this country. Now, I am so proud of her that mom is close to 10 years, coming January, 10 years clean and sober for my mom. And for all of you out there who are dealing with it yourself or know somebody, love somebody who's dealing with it, there is hope on the other side of addiction. There is hope in recovery, but only if we give people that second chance. And we are not going to give the second chances to millions of Americans if we keep on letting those drug cartels use our country as a drug trafficking zone. So our message to those drug cartels, our message to those drug traffickers, our message to everybody who is coming to this country illegally is in 6 months, pack your bags because Donald Trump's coming back into office and you're going home. And it's all of these public safety issues. I mean, in this state, property crimes are up 20%. In this state, 12 more minors died from gun violence, thanks again to Kamala Harris's policies. And right now, there are 250,000 illegal aliens in the state of Pennsylvania, thanks to Kamala Harris's policies. And that doesn't count all the people who've gotten across unchecked or unaccounted for. So it's probably more like 500,000 illegal aliens in the state of Pennsylvania right now. And how many of us just in this room know a school where they're struggling to give American citizens a good education because the schools are flooded with people who shouldn't even be here? And wouldn't it be nice to have a president who thinks that the first duty is to keep American citizens safe, not people who shouldn't be in this country to begin with? Now that problem, just that immigration problem alone, has cost Pennsylvanians $2.6 billion. That's $300 for every man, woman, and child in this room and all across Pennsylvania. That is totally unacceptable. And you know, one of the things that I really wish, and y'all are so kind and generous. Often when I come to events like this, people ask me how I'm doing. And look, I'm doing great. This is the honor of a lifetime to be able to stand up here and ask you for your vote to be the next Vice President of the United States. But I really wish that I could take every single one of you and give you the perspective that I've gotten on this great country over just the last 7 weeks. Because this is a beautiful country, my friends. From the beautiful deserts of Arizona to the mountains of central Pennsylvania, this is a beautiful country. I believe it's the most beautiful country in the whole world. And it's not just that beauty that you see that's surface deep. We have got underneath the ground here in Pennsylvania natural resources that Russia and China would literally kill for. We've got the best workers and the best people. We've got the best historical tradition and cultural traditions anywhere in the world. We can fix this country's problems, my friends. We just got to get better leadership. So I want us to tell Kamala Harris and every single one of the corrupt Washington Democrats who have failed to do their job and protect this state and all 50 states, on November 5th, the American people, the people of Pennsylvania are going to send a message. You're fired and Donald Trump is coming back to the White House. So of course, I talked to the president quite a bit, and I get a call from the president. Not unusual because we call each other a lot on Sunday. And I was. Is that him? It probably is. So I'm sitting with my 7-year-old boy. We're sitting at home, and the president calls me and he says, "JD, they tried to do it again." And I said, "They tried to do what, sir?" And he said, "They tried to shoot me again." And I said, my first reaction, of course, was, "Well, sir, are you okay?" Right? That's what you do. I said, "Sir, are you doing okay?" And of course he said, "Yeah, I'm doing fine." And then he said, we got apparently a heckler there in the back, but we'll get him out of here. Our friend, it's all right. Hey, look, our friend back there wants to pay even higher grocery prices. That's why he's supporting Kamala Harris. But I talked to the president, and the president says, and remember, this is like 5 minutes. This is well before the news became public. The president, this just happened 5 minutes ago, and he says, I'm doing fine, but I'm kind of pissed off because I was about to make a birdie putt on the 6th hole, and they wouldn't let me finish. And I chuckled a little bit. Of course, I'm sitting in Ohio, not in Florida, and I'm more bothered by this than he is. But then it hit me, 2 things. Number one, isn't that the kind of man we want to be the president of the United States? A guy who takes a bullet and stands up and raises his fist in the air in defiance. A guy who, again, is nearly assassinated and is more worried about not making a birdie putt. Because that shows you who he is under fire, under literal fire. And as much as the media loves to lie about Donald Trump, and as much as Kamala Harris's entire campaign is about lying about Donald Trump, what we want in the Oval Office is a person who is calm and cool under pressure. And that describes Donald Trump to a T, a guy who can take a bullet and still keep his wits about him. You know who we don't want in the Oval Office? A person who is so afraid of the friendly American media that she won't even give a real interview. Because Kamala, if you're too afraid of the American media to give an interview, we cannot trust you to represent us on the world stage and in front of world leaders. Because we all know, the most important job of a president is not agreeing with you on any substantive policy issue. The most important job of a president is dealing with crisis. And I know who I trust to deal with a crisis. It's Donald J. Trump, the man who has stood calm under fire, not Kamala Harris, who's too afraid of the American media to give an interview. And then, of course, the media is trying to bury this story. Literally 6 days ago, there was a near assassination on a former and future U.S. president, and the American press is more worried about salacious scandals in other states than they are about what's going on right here in Pennsylvania, or the fact that Donald Trump was nearly assassinated. Now, I think that's ridiculous and preposterous, but think about this. What is it that drives the left's hatred of this one person? And I think I figured it out, my friends. The answer is censorship. The reason they keep going after him is because they want to silence him, and they want to silence him permanently. And by the way, they want to silence every single person in this room. That's why, by the way, big tech conspired to silence Americans over all the COVID craziness. That's why big tech still to this day tries to interfere in our elections. And that's why at this very moment, the Democrats are busy calling anybody who disagrees with Kamala Harris's open border a racist. They're all about silencing their fellow citizens. Now, here's what I think about this. And here's why I think we got to talk about this immigration and border issue every single day. Because I've seen in the small town of Springfield, Ohio, or here in Pennsylvania, there have been cities, small towns that have been overwhelmed with migrants who are brought in by Kamala Harris. And we know exactly the story. We know that it leads to a stress on local services. We know people can't get into hospital or to the doctor's office. We know that schools don't educate children as well. And we know that it means higher housing and higher grocery prices. That's what Kamala Harris's open border does to small towns and big cities all over our country. But here's what really bothers me about it. It's not just that they've made people's lives worse with this terrible open border. It's that they're going to call you bad names if you dare complain about it. And so our message to Kamala Harris and the Democrats is we're going to keep on complaining about your policies because this is America and we have the right to speak our mind. And our message, our message to Kamala Harris is very simple. We are not bad people for thinking that you should not flood millions of illegal aliens into this country. We are not bad people for thinking that the drug cartels shouldn't be allowed to bring fentanyl into our country. You are not a bad person for having the courage to defy Kamala Harris and say no more of this garbage. Kamala Harris is a bad person for letting this happen to our country in the first place. Now, we're going to take a few questions from the media, but before we do, I want to just leave you. That's okay. You don't have to boo them. Some of them are very fine people. But I want to leave you with one final thought because I think it ties together how broken Kamala Harris's policies are It ties together what Pennsylvania is dealing with at this very moment, and it also highlights how much better we could be in this country with better leadership. We are sitting in the state of Pennsylvania. You all in your state are sitting on what can only be described as the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. Again, when I talk about Russia and China having resources, or they would kill for the resources that we have just in the state of Pennsylvania. Now, Kamala Harris has pursued an energy policy where she'd rather buy oil and gas from tin pot dictators all over the world. I say we buy it from Pennsylvania workers right here in our own territory. But if we do that, it's not just going to be good for the Pennsylvania energy workers, though it's certainly going to be good for them. If we make more of our own energy, it's going to drive down the cost of manufacturing. That means making more stuff in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and all over our country. It's going to drive down the cost of food. That means more farmers can afford to stay on family farms, and we all can afford to buy good food at the grocery store. It means that everybody, whether you're rich or poor, can afford to turn on your heating in the depths of a cold winter night. It means peace and prosperity for our people. And the fact that Kamala Harris is going to war against Pennsylvania energy instead of fighting for Pennsylvania energy means that we cannot let her anywhere near the Oval Office. So, with gratitude for every single person in this room, for all the hard work we're all going to do together, thank you for having me. It's great to be here, and let's have some questions from the media now. God bless you all. It's great to be with you. So, thank y'all, please. So we're going to try to take a few questions here, but what I'd like to do is start with local reporters, and then if we've got time afterwards, we'll take some questions from the national folks too. First question, the lights are too bright for me to see you, but I'll hope that you got a microphone back there. Just shout your question at me.
Senator, so Trump has proposed numerous tax cuts.
Sir, could you repeat the question, please? Just be loud if you could speak directly in the microphone, because it's hard to hear you up here.
Trump has proposed multiple tax cuts, and we have a national debt that's more than $35 trillion. How will the Trump-Vance administration reduce the impact of this loss of revenue?
Well, look, first of all, somebody just gave me an answer. One thing we're going to do to lower the cost of goods, but also to reduce that deficit, is drill, baby, drill. And Pennsylvania is going to benefit as much as anybody. But look, I'm glad you asked the question about taxes, and I'll talk about revenue in a second. But the tax issue really does illustrate the difference between Kamala Harris's policies and Donald Trump's policies. Kamala Harris is going around every single day promising that working Americans are going to get a tax increase, and also promising that she's going to reward corporations that ship American jobs overseas. That is the sum total of her tax policy. You know what Donald Trump's tax policy is? He wants to give hardworking Americans a tax cut, and he wants to penalize corporations that are shipping our jobs overseas. Let's build and make things right here in America and reward the companies that do that. Now, when you do that, when you reward American businesses for creating American jobs as opposed to Chinese jobs in China, you lower the deficit because that means you have fewer people collecting and more people working and paying into the system. The other thing you're going to do to lower the deficit is to cut out the Medicare, Social Security fraud that we see coming from illegal aliens every single day in this country. We believe that we need to preserve and protect Social Security and Medicare. Kamala Harris wants to bankrupt Medicare and Social Security by giving it to illegal aliens. Is that a good idea, Pennsylvania? And it's not just Social Security and Medicare that the illegal aliens are taking advantage of. We've got housing. We've got numerous types of welfare. We've got numerous types of cash assistance that people who shouldn't even be here are taking advantage of. So I absolutely believe that we can cut taxes on hardworking Americans. The way that we do it is stop paying out hundreds of billions of dollars to illegal aliens who shouldn't even be here. And that's what Donald Trump and I are going to do. Next question.
Hi, Senator Vince. I just wanted to ask you, last weekend, you talked about creating stories so the media pays attention to American people suffering. But for those
Could you start at the beginning and then repeat the question a little louder?
Last week, you talked about creating stories so the media pays attention to people suffering. But when those stories aren't necessarily verified by fact, are you saying those things because you're really just trying to gin up the base? Or are you, and I guess my question is, are you guys still really trying to win over voters that might not already be in the game?
Look, what? It's well, that's my first response to the question is boo. That's exactly what we're doing here. But look, The media has lied and misrepresented this, and so, of course, is the Kamala Harris campaign, because Kamala Harris, notice, she's not running on substance, she's just running on dishonesty, because she doesn't have a record, she can defend herself. What I said is that we create media stories. In other words, we focus the people's attention on what's already going on. Does anybody really think, I challenge you, go to Springfield, Ohio, which has been overwhelmed by 20,000 Haitian immigrants. Go to any community that's been overwhelmed by Kamala Harris's illegal alien policies, and